Hi guys, this is John from US Dash Camera. Today I got a review on the Vicovation OPIA 1. Now, there is an OPIA 2 also, and that one's slightly more expensive than this one. This one, the 1, as you can see, has a slanted eye in the name. The 2 would have 2 eyes, but it's still the OPIA 2. So this one is a 1080p 60 frame per second single channel dash camera, and it does have a Sony Starvis image sensor, so the image should be pretty good day and especially at night. This was sent to me for review by blackboxmycar.com, so I'd like to thank them. Here you can see the Starvis logo. We got a Wi-Fi app and Sony sensor. Here on the side you can see some of the other specs, like the f1.4 aperture lens, 145 diagonal viewing angle of the lens, and like I mentioned earlier, 1080p 60 frames per second is the max. And this camera does actually have very high bit rate, about 20 megabits per second in the 1080p 60 mode, and as you'll see later, it is pretty good video quality. Besides the fact that this has Wi-Fi, it does have a pretty decent parking mode, but it is a little different than a lot of other high-end cameras like Blackview or Thinkware, so I will get into that later. The box is very interesting. The way you push it out of the top is pretty unique, but I'm just going to go ahead and dump it out all onto the table, and we'll take a look at everything spread out on the table. It's a very interesting design. This is the first Vicovation camera I've actually used. Now the side of the box will also list everything that comes with it: the camera, an adhesive mount and suction cup mount, the cigar car charger, the manual, and warranty card. So there's some optional accessories: the Vico Power Plus, the GPS, and a quick release mount for the CPL adapter, which I do not have to test. The manual is okay. It's in several different languages. I do like that it comes with both a suction cup mount and adhesive mount. You can see it actually uses a very similar style to a lot of other cameras like the G1W and several other cameras. So I did actually try a few other mounts because I didn't really like the suction cup mount that came with it. And on top of that, the adhesive mount does use a gray adhesive, which clear or black is typically preferred because it's less visible in your windshield, so that's pretty disappointing. Now looking at the actual camera, it's got a pretty unique shape. It does feel very sturdy. It doesn't feel like it's just hollow plastic or anything, so it feels like very high quality. It's got some interesting orange accents on the front. On the side we have the power and also the GPS input, because GPS is not built in. Micro SD card slot on the side, and it's got a 2-inch screen on the back. It's not a huge screen, which I like. I think cameras typically should be smaller if possible, because then they're less visible in your car. It does have 5 physical buttons, and I always prefer physical buttons over touchscreen buttons. So here's a different mount I had laying around. This is from Street Guardian, I believe from one of their cheaper entry-level models. And here you can see this clips into the front, and due to the angle of it, I actually had to mount it like that, which seems backwards to me. This is a very common generic suction cup mount, and every other camera I've used that had it, the lever to suction was always on the top when I mounted it, but due to the weird angle of the ball that sticks out of the camera, I had to put it upside down from what I'm used to. Now with the suction or adhesive mount, it's slightly better. It's at least shorter of an arm, so it's closer to the windshield. But again, I'm not a fan of the way this mounts. I ended up not being able to get a very good angle with the adhesive mount at all. I was using this on a Silverado, not my typical personal vehicle, but here you can see this is the Street Guardian adhesive mount. I'll provide a link down in the description to where you can buy that, because it's much better, I think. here's another Street Guardian mount, which is a generic mount. You can probably find it for cheaper, but I'll provide a link down to where you can get it. This was sent to me with one of the Street Guardian cameras, and again, that suction cup mount I think is much better. So let's plug it in and take a look at the menu. One thing I did want to show is the audio is very, very obnoxious on this camera. This is the first camera I ever felt like I really wanted to mute it. Of course, like many other cameras, it does have that emergency lock button on the left if you want to save a file so it doesn't get recorded over. And these button presses are what really annoy me and why I would turn the button sounds off. So, not a big fan of that. It really makes me wonder how they came up with those awful noises. Let's take a look at some of the menu items. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's pretty typical, but I did want to talk about the parking mode. You can do either motion detection or a time lapse. Now with the motion detection, unlike Blackview, Thinkware, or Blacksys, or some other high-end Korean dash cameras, this one does not do buffered recording. So when it's hardwired or connected with something like the Vico Power Plus, which is similar to the Blackview PowerMagic Pro, it will start recording when it senses motion, and there is a slight delay. But not only that, there's actually a delay between clips. So with other high-end cameras, when motion continues in parking mode, it just continues recording. But here, it'll actually stop recording and then start recording, and then there will be an actual gap in the video, and I will show that in a second. Now I was able to actually use this parking mode in the Silverado without hardwiring it because the cigarette ports are always on, but typically you would need something like the Vico Power Plus. So here you'll see that SUV just skipped across the screen from the right to the left. And that's because even while it's in parking mode and the video is still recording, it suddenly stops. So let me show that once more real quick. Watch the SUV as it approaches from the right, and then it cuts to the left. So that's sort of irritating that they cut away like that, because there's a potential that a car backing up might set off the motion detection, but the actual impact might be during that gap, so you wouldn't actually have footage of the impact or potential hit and run. So that's sort of an issue to me. It's definitely not nearly as good as something like the Blackview or Thinkware parking mode, but it's still better than a lot of the other cameras like Anchor or a lot of the other cheap Chinese cameras that don't start recording until several seconds after an impact. Now, I don't want to go through all of the menu, but I do want to go through the Wi-Fi app, since that's something a lot of people do care about. Of course, the default password is 1 through 8, and you can get a live view once you're connected. The delay isn't too bad, but you're not going to be using this for anything other than really setting the angle of your camera. Of course, you can view your files from here, and you can download them to your phone, but since these are 20 megabit per second files, they are pretty big, especially because I have this set to 3-minute clips. So you'll see here, it's downloading really, really slow. But compared to the Blackview or Thinkware cameras, those cameras use a much lower bit rate, and typically I have those set to 1 minute. Here you can see all of the same settings that the menu on the actual camera has. So if you want, you don't want to have to lean up against the camera while it's on your windshield, the wireless definitely helps to change the settings. So again, there's the standard menu options like pretty much any other camera. It does have the LWS, FCWS features, which basically are audio alerts when you're about to hit someone or depart from your lane, but I personally don't like those features because I don't think a beep is really going to save me if I'm not paying attention and I'm about to rear-end someone. Of course, you can also watch the files directly on the camera.
Republicans have reached agreement on a sweeping overhaul of the nation's tax code. Your Congressman Mostly Snow reports the House and Senate negotiators have been at the White House discussing.
Overall, I thought the audio quality from the camera was decent. It does have sort of an echoey sound, but I was impressed by the speakers on the physical camera. So, like I mentioned several times before, this does do 1080p 60 frames per second, and I would have to say that I do think the video quality does look pretty excellent. I was, for whatever reason, expecting it to be lower bitrate or lower quality like a lot of the other Korean dash cameras, and that's typically because they have two-channel systems, but even the single-channel cameras like from Blackview still have the lower bitrate and typically don't look as good as this to me. Now the Blackview 750S with 1080p 60 frames per second in the front might be very comparable. The issue is my unit was slightly out of focus, I believe. Although I do know if you do have an effective unit like that, Blackview has been fixing them or sending out new ones with a corrected focus. But this is only a single channel system, and I believe Vicovation currently only has two single channel cameras in their OPIA line. They do have the Marcus line of cameras that have dual channel, but from what I've heard, the OPIA line is supposed to be their higher end cameras, so I assume that means they're going to release a two-channel OPIA camera sometime in the future. The 60 frames per second I thought really helps the video quality here, but not only that, it just does seem like everything's really detailed. It's still 1080p though, so it's not like you can see license plates as far as 4K or 1440p. Now 4K is just starting to come out for dash cameras, so it's not like it's the standard right now, but it is something to look out for within the next year. At night I also thought this camera did very well. The lighting or the low level brightness seemed to do very well. That's likely due to the Sony Starvis image sensor and the high 20 megabit per second bitrate. So I really felt like this camera definitely blows away a lot of the other high-end single channel Korean cameras when it comes to video. But again, that parking mode definitely is lacking, so if you're looking for a somewhat high-end camera with great video quality day and night, this is definitely one to consider. But if you really want a good parking mode, I think you should look towards Blackview or Thinkware. Now a lot of people are going to be asking why buy this over something like the A119, which does have 1440p 30 frames per second and has excellent video quality day and night also. But I think most people are going to find that side by side the OPIA 1 and the A119 or A119S are so similar it hardly would make a difference even with the higher resolution of the A119. I just think overall the OPIA 1 video quality looks great. I think it, especially at night, everything looks a lot more crisp than the Thinkware or Blackview cameras. Now, so overall some of the cons, besides the parking mode, which is a little lacking, it's somewhere in the middle ground for how useful it is. As I mentioned before, didn't really like the adhesive mount because it came with a gray adhesive, so I would replace that. I didn't really like the very generic bubble suction cup mount, and I would replace that too. But I do like the fact that it comes with an adhesive mount and a suction cup mount, because that means you can use the adhesive mount in your main car and then take this camera with you whenever you need to go on a road trip or something, or maybe you're in a rental. I also thought I was going to be able to swivel the camera all the way around and record myself, like say I'm being pulled over by a police officer. That's not the case with this. It might be possible with a quick release mount for the CPL adapter, but I didn't have one of those to try. This was sent to me for review by Black Box My Car, but they don't even sell them currently, so I didn't want to go too far out of my way to try it when it's not even sold at the store that provided this review unit. But with those negatives, I think the overall great 1080p 60 video quality, the several mounting options, the very high quality build of this camera outweigh the cons, and I think there is a market for this kind of camera, especially because it has the Wi-Fi app while still having great video quality. Now, if you are interested in purchasing this camera, I will provide links down below. You can purchase it from Black Box My Car or Amazon. Now, I do have a coupon code for Black Box My Car, so any purchase over $80 will get $10 off. That is Canadian dollars, but they ship to the US for free also, so they're Canadian based, North American based, doesn't really make a difference. I usually just suggest to people see who has a better price. Sometimes Black Box My Car will have a better price, so check that down in the description below. And if you like this video or my other videos, I'd appreciate if you hit like and subscribe. And as usual, drive safe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.